And Hill Racers360, and we are going to continue our track analysis series. And this time we're going to do it with Sonoma Raceway, one of my favorite places to ride. Certainly a challenging track with a lot more challenges lately, which we'll talk about. These track analyses are going to go two ways. One, we're going to do them just like this, where we actually sit down with the track map and go over it, as well as going over it in video form. And I think both are very, very important. But we'll get this one going with the track map analysis. And I think it's important to realize that if you sit down with a track map with somebody that has experience there and can take you through it, it really shortcuts the things that you should be looking for. So it makes it a lot easier to pinpoint what's important and take away all the things that are not important. So these are really the things that we look at focusing on when we kind of go over this track. So Sonoma was actually the first track that I ever raced at. It's gone through so many changes over the years, and right now it's a little bit of a challenging shape. The surface is definitely needing a repave. There's lots of character. How's that? A lot of character to the track surface, as well as a lot of character to the layout. But such a great track, and always been a little bit considered a locals track, just because there's so many things that are going on with it. So, all right, let's take you through it. So. First thing is, and you can see that I kind of drew the chicane that we put in here, this little extension to turn one. We use that. Motor America doesn't use it on the starts, but they use it through the rest of the race. So we kind of have that drawn in. So a couple things when we start to take a look at this, and the first thing that we're really going to take a look at with turn one is realize it's actually a fairly balanced corner, meaning the acceleration zone and the deceleration zone are really the same. So, we're going to strive for our brake release to be right in this area right there. So just about the curb right there is a good brake release point. Where you go to the brakes is going to completely be dependent on what bike you're on and what speed you're on. You can certainly start to gauge where you're going to release the brakes, where you go to the brakes by sort of the start-finish line. Start-finish line kind of gives us a bit of a gauge, whether you're at the line or after the line. Again, completely bike dependent on where that goes. A couple other things when we take a look at this is we really want to work on not fading into that corner. And so being as close as you can to the wall and not fading in and staying straight up and down. And the reason that we're going to stay straight up and down is because then we can maximize our braking. As soon as that bike comes off center, you're not so inclined to want to brake as hard. So what we really focus on is spending that time of differentiating between straight up and down brake pressure. So making sure that we have our good straight up and down braking zone here, but then realize that once we turn in, that zone right there down to the curb is what we use to have the front end loaded and get the bike to turn. So differentiating between those two things. So that gets us a little bit started on the entry of turn one. And again, brake release is about right there at the curb. So that works out pretty well. So on the exit of one, there's actually a very, very big acceleration zone that comes off of one. And what we're going to look for that is I'm actually going to draw this backwards, because we will typically kind of want to go and jump that curb right there, or come really close to jumping that curb. And so the whole idea is that we're trying to make this straight. And if we can make that straight, then we know that we can run really good acceleration off there. So we're trying to accelerate off there. As we go over the curb, we stay straight over the curb. And as you go over the curb, you continue to go straight for another 20, 30, 40 feet, because that makes the turn into two quite a bit better. And yeah, that seems to work out really, really well. So that whole idea is getting into one, get to the apex, accelerate off, and then have that nice straight trajectory, and you can come over the curb right there. Works super, super well. So 2, let's take a look at 2, because regardless of the bike, there's actually a fairly good acceleration zone down from 1 into 2. Here's what we're trying to do to 2. It's essentially the same idea. And a couple things that let's take a look at. So my reference point in 2 is the corner worker station right up in here. So there's a corner worker station right there. And then I'm trying to take a look and basically draw that backwards to where I'm at. Because I want to be able to enter 2 pretty low. Because if I enter 2 low, that means the bike is more straight up and down, and I can accelerate longer up into 2. So, oh, hey, look how that works. So you can see that line is fairly straight. So then if I get my acceleration off of 1, get the bike turned, then have a nice straight shot up the hill for more acceleration. And then I have this nice area right in here is my harder braking area, because the bike's straight up and down, so I can afford to do that. So that works out really, really well. And again, my reference point then ends up being is I want to be straight, aligned up with that corner worker station. So I'll take a look up into it, get aimed for it, and that puts me right in that great position for turn 2. So when we get into 2, the brake release point on just about any of the bikes is the beginning of the curb. So the beginning of the curb ends up being a really good brake release point, and it's somewhere about right in here. That's a great place to be thinking about where you want to let off the brakes. So once we get into 2, that's great. One nice thing about 2 that a lot of people, this is kind of a local secret, is if you stay really close to the curb up in there. So if you just sort of stay, I'm going to kind of crudely draw it here. But if the curb kind of comes, like this, is you kind of want to ride within a foot or 2 right up there by there, because it's not off camber there. Yeah, out here, oh my gosh, totally off camber, and it's all freaky. But if you ride and you're fairly close to the curb, it's not off camber. It's actually very, very flat up there. You end up just sort of riding around the top of it. So a little bit of a local secret. All right, as we exit 2, so the exit of 2, of course, we want to have good bike placement off there, have the bike pointed straight. So what's really important about the exit of 2? Getting it back for the entry of 3. So what I'll tell riders is, okay, look, it depends on the bike, whether you're on a junior cup bike or 1,000 or whatever it is. On 1,000, you may not use all the track on the exit, right? You may be somewhere in this area right here. On a junior cup bike, you might be all the way out here, somewhere out there. But here's what matters. What matters is we want to be set up and we want to be back to be parallel with 3. So if this is the exit, this is one place where you actually get permission you don't have to be super, super precise. It's okay. So we want to get the bike back for this nice parallel entry into 3, because that is what's going to help the speed overall through 3. So yeah, get the bike over, get it back over parallel for 3. So when we look at 3, and we would call, this part of 3, 3A. So we have 3A here, we have 3B here. Okay, when we look at this, 3A is an entry turn, right? Because there's really no exit. So you really have to think about, you want to maximize this section of 3, right? So from where you go to the brakes, somewhere in here, that's all entry. So 3 is a great example of, we're going to use the brakes just about to the apex in 3 because it's an entry corner. That's how that works. So 3 is an entry corner. If we went back to 2, of course, 2 would be an exit corner. 3 is an entry. 3A is an entry. Brake release is right up there by the curb. So a couple things here it's easy to want to turn in too early. You turn in, of course, if you end up turning in too early for 3, what's that do? That puts you too low in for 3A, and then that screws your drive up down into 4. So what we do, or what we'd like to see you do for that is when you get into 3, it just takes a little bit of discipline, just a little bit of discipline to hold this direction a little bit longer. It's a millisecond of holding the bike to the left because, oh, look, I'll draw this out. Oh, yeah. See how that makes that straighter, right? And if you gave up on that, you can see the difference right there. So what we're trying to do is hold that trajectory just a little bit to make it up and over for 3A straighter, more acceleration. So just hold on to the radius of 3A just a little bit more. All right, or yeah, 3A a little bit more. And then 3B, we look at 3B as an exit corner. And 3B, oh my gosh, it's so blind, right? It's, oh my gosh, I don't know where I'm going. There's a couple of really good places there for some exit references. So exit references there. So you've got this, there's a wall here. There is I believe there's a corner worker station down here for like NASCAR when they do the extension. So you can use that. There's a couple of spots here on the wall. So there's a couple of spots on the wall. I think there's a break in the wall somewhere in here. There's a gate right here. And that's a really good line of sight to take a look at. So as I come over that, I realize, oh, if I can see that, if I can see those, then I know it's safe to accelerate. My next reference point down there is the curb, right? So I'm looking for the curb down here because we're going to stay with our eyes on that curb quite a while. And the reason we're going to do that is because as we come over 3A, we're looking for that curb. The second thing is we want to be parallel with it as we come down into 4, and then we use that as a good turn-in reference as well. So 3A, really good exit corner. It's another good corner to make sure your core is engaged and your hands are loose to let the bike do the work as it crests that big hill. So that's what we take a look at with 3A. And then 4. All right, so we take a look at 4. 4 is an interesting one. It's slower than you think, and it's really important to have the proper exit trajectory off of 4 because it leads into 5, which leads into 6, which is a very, very high speed part of the track. So the big thing that I see with 4 is let's make sure that when you're coming down into 4, you're not turning in too early, right? So we want to stay parallel with the side of the track, and you can see what an early turn in will do. Like, so if I just draw this out a little bit, so the rider that wants to come down here and they sort of fade in and they turn in too early, it puts them sort of in that trajectory. And what we're really looking to do is we want to be turning in a little bit later because we want to be pointed down this direction. And my exit reference down there is the end of the curve. So if we took that and we drew that backwards, that's how we would find sort of our turn-in point right there. And the way that we would look at that is we can draw that out as well. So if the end of the curve is about right here, that's my exit reference point. Then we would take a look at this and we sort of draw it backwards. And that's how we would look at our turn-in reference point. So really important not to turn in there too early. And the whole idea is that you want to be turning in appropriately with the, and after you start your exit, start your drive, you want to get pushed out there to the exit, to the end of the track, and about the end of that curve is that good reference point. So there you go with 4. Start slow, go slow on the entry and get a good drive. Way more important than rushing 4. I've made a lot of passes in 4 because everybody's trying to go too fast in 4. So yeah, be super diligent on that one. All right. So the exit to 4 to 5, really the exit 4 to 5 is what leads into 6 as well. 5 is very, very quick. And the way that we're going to look at that is, again, one of the things that I see so many people do is they come down out of 4, they accelerate, and then they give up on the exit of 4 too early. Let me say that again. They give up on the exit of 4 too early. So they start to drive off, and then immediately start turning into 5, right? So they start coming down here, which puts them into 5 too low, and they're just sitting there forever, just sitting there, riding that radius around there. So the whole idea is that we want to stay parallel with the edge of the track on the exit of 4, hold your exit of 4 longer. So as we come in here like this, then we start to turn it a little bit more gradually into 5. And that's what we're looking for, because when we look at 5, what ends up happening in 5 is you can see, especially in this area, it starts to tighten up right there. So the whole idea is that, you know, we want to be able to gradually turn it into 5 a little bit slower, and as we're accelerating as well. So yeah, that is one where we see a lot of people turn in way too early. They just kind of ride that radius right there. And the whole idea with that is, you know, I wanted my exit of 5 to be able to give me options into 6, which we'll talk about right there. So exit of 4, hold on to your exit of 4. Don't turn into turn 5 too early. Remember, 5, we want to be driving through 5. That gives us the good run up into 6. So, all right. So when we look at this, we go back to this. When we go back to this, let's see if we can get this to load back up. There we go. When we go back to this, what we want to be able to do is, for 6, is really thinking about the entry of 6. So if we really think about the entry of 6, what we're going to do is we want to be in a position to give ourselves some options. So there's all sorts of different trajectories that we can look into 6. We've heard people say, oh my gosh, always be on the inside. Oh my gosh, always be on the outside. The easiest way to take a look at 6 is let's enter from the middle. And the reason is because it gives us options. And we can make that decision as we come up into 6. So let's say I want to pass a rider, and that rider is whatever, way to the inside. Great. Then I just hold on to my trajectory a little bit longer, you know, stay turning a little bit more to the right, and then I can make a pass around the outside of him going in. Or if that rider, I see him holding his radius, then I'll accelerate longer up the inside. I just have to use my loop brakes a little bit longer. But the ideal way to do this is enter about the middle of the track or slightly to the inside of the middle. That gives you a lot more options right there. So you're like, oh my gosh, it's blind. What do I do? Well, my trick, it's not so much a trick as it is a fact, is there's 2 trees, and those trees have been there forever. And if you spot those trees, they're about right in here. And if you spot those trees all the way back here, it's pretty interesting. Because if you can see those trees back there, and you can kind of look for them, and if you look at them, it just puts you in the right spot as you come into the carousel. So yeah, I look for those 2 trees, and we want to be right smack in the middle of those trees, and it makes it super, super easy for you. All right. So either inside entry, middle entry, or outside. If we have the choice, we're going to take the middle because it gives us more options. So 6, it's really interesting. As you come up into 6, we're going to release the throttle just as it crests. So the crest is somewhere about right in here. That's the crest. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that most of the hard braking is done in that area right there. So the hard braking is done in this area. We see a lot of people over slow because they end up braking too hard right in here. No, right? We can roll over the top and then have that harder braking zone right in this area. And then our brake release point ends up being about right in this area here. So honestly, you can hold the brake there as long as you want, just to mitigate whatever speed that you want in there as well. So, all right, couple more things in here. Because 6 is a big, long radius corner, the slowest point of 6 lasts pretty long. I've tried all sorts of different things in there throughout the years. Yeah, but I mean, the bottom line is the slowest point of 6 lasts about that long. So I've tried different bikes. I've added throttle, gone back to rear brake. I've held a throttle against the rear brake. I've gone accelerated, used some front brake. It doesn't really make a big difference in lap time. It can make a difference in racecraft, but for lap time, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, right? Because the speed, I mean, the speed that you end up with in this area is all dictated by your entry. So it's everything that you did back here that equals that speed over there. So just kind of think about that. If you want to get better at that, you can increase how you release the brakes, or you can increase your entry in there. So a couple things here in 6, especially as the pavement gets worse. There's some not, I'll try to say this. There's some not friendly pavement out in this area, meaning that it's got a lot of cracks in it. It's not exactly the funnest thing to want to go across. So I think a lot of things that we're trying to accomplish when we run through here is, again, let's take a look and see what this looks like, right? The exit apex is the end of the curb here on the outside. And what we're trying to do, again, is we're trying to draw that backwards. So you can kind of think about, okay, that's sort of that straight trajectory off of there. And then it's how do we connect that trajectory as you come down in here, right? It's how we're trying to connect those two trajectories. So as we come in here, we do want to make this a little bit of a V, and then we want to connect those. We want to connect those two. And it's really not a ton. So I'm going to try to draw this, so bear with me. So as we come down in here, it's coming down in here and then bringing the bike out just a little bit right here, and then bringing the bike back down this way. And it's a fairly deliberate move. And it's a deliberate move either with your body or rolling off the throttle. You can use a little bit of rear brake there if you want. And it makes it a fairly deliberate direction change, so we can get exit direction a little bit quicker because there's a massive drive off there. And of course, the fastest part of the track. So 6. Just to recap a little bit, just a little bit on 6. Let's kind of go through this quickly one more time. As we go in into 6, let's really think about where our brake zone is, right? Our sort of maximum braking is here. Our brake release is somewhere down in here. We're gonna have a deliberate direction change down here. And then we're gonna be looking for our exit apex down here. And you really have to think about moving your eyes and looking for it, because you're going to have to hunt for it a little bit as well. So, all right. Coming up into 7. 7's really not that super diabolical of a corner. Again, as we 6, come down to 7. Finding a brake marker there can be difficult. The nice thing is that we do have some fun things down there with the fence right here, and there's different signs. There's different breaks in the fence that give you some brake markers. So again, the thing with 7 that we want to look at is, again, we have 2 different turns. We have 7A and 7B. 7A entry, 7B exit. Okay, so on an entry turn, what do we want to do? Yeah, that's it. We want to use our brakes to or past the apex. And what do we want to do with an exit corner? Yep, that's right. We want to be accelerating as we go past the apex, right? We want to have positive acceleration there. So the way that 7 is going to be drawn out, the way that we're going to look at this is we're absolutely going to be able to triangulate this. And it doesn't matter if you're on a junior cut bike or 1,000. The slowest point of 7, is right in this area. Slowest point is 7. So the whole idea is that we want to use our brakes as efficiently as we can to that place, and then be able to release it and have direction to accelerate off. Done correctly, there's no neutral throttle in 7. So the way that works is, right, we're going to come in and we're going to turn into 7 a little bit early. Why? Because we want to be put out wide. So as we come into 7, we're going to come in like this, right? Make it, come back around, and then draw it out the exit like that. So that's maximized our straight up and down entry for more brakes. It's maximized our straight up and down exit for more acceleration. All right, we want to spend the least amount of time at maximum lean angle, and that's how we're going to do it. So 7, not super complicated, other than let's think about where you want to release the brake and how we want to turn in so you can be out there for a good exit as well. All right. So there's kind of a lot going on here in the S's, but we're not going to overthink the S's too much. What we're really trying to do with the S's is make them as straight as possible. And there's a couple things that go along with that. Is we're specifically trying to make them as straight as possible up until about about right in here. So this is the idea that we're trying to have right here, right? We're trying to have that sort of idea. We want to make it as straight as possible so we can accelerate for as long as possible. So how you place your bike off a 7 is super, super important. And let's talk about this a little bit. You'll see some, like for instance, on a Ninja 400 bike like that, you'll see these guys exit and they'll end up over here. Perfectly fine. Why? Because they have time in this area to bring it back for the straight run down to here. That's okay, right? On 1,000 or even a 600, we really can't do that. So what we do on a 1,000 or 600 is let's really make sure that we have the bike pointed straight off of here to get that straight line down into this area right here. How you move your body there is pretty important too. It's a separate movement. So right, left for each one of those. So, all right. As we come down in here into 8A. So as we come down in here into 8A, the whole idea with that, especially when we get on some of the faster bikes. So I would say like an SV up, we're going to use brakes for 8. Junior Cup bike is just a quick little roll off, not too much there, but SV and up, you're going to use some brakes there. The bike's going to turn on less time and distance, and just be a lot more precise right there. So one of the things that we'll take a look at, one of the great reference points that I'm going to look at here is a couple things. One is we have, let's see, it's going to be about right here. There's the access road. So as we come down in here, I want to just take a little bit of a bite off that access road. Got to be careful of the paint when the paint is cold, not a lot of grip. And that helps open up 8 quite a bit. My next reference point here is the curb. And my brake release point is about middle of the curb here at 8. And then same thing here. I want to hold a little bit of radius in 8. In other words, I want to hold on to the left of 8. Of course, why do I want to do that? Because it makes my trajectory down here straighter, right? Because if we went and we gave up, or we turned in there, say we got in there too early, then it points us out like that, and it's really hard to get the acceleration that we want. You can even see right there. Look how I'm not pointed correctly. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make that as straight as we can, so we can have the acceleration over 8A. Reference points down here. There's some tough things down here, but typically I'll look for the fence down in this area down here. There's some spots down there where you can look on the fence or look in the bleachers. There are lots of good reference points down there. Same thing as the track has gotten in not the best shape. There's some weird grooves here in the pavement that'll do your bike will feel completely weird if you get your front wheel stuck in one of those. So I always try to be to the left of those. Yeah, it makes a fairly big difference. Coming over 8A, you'll see all sorts of goofy things with people in body position there. Yeah, the big thing there is we're trying to get our hands pretty light. It's easy to have way too much of a death grip on your bars right there. So core engagement outside thigh is a very, very big deal. And letting the bike, we see people have really crazy wheelies there. You're thinking about you want to accelerate down the back side of how that drops off. And that's how that helps mitigates the bike wheeling so much. So, all right. Coming down 9 into the chicane area. Yeah, the big thing here is straight up and down braking. There's so much straight up and down braking in here. And just really thinking about, I'm going to commit to my straight up and down braking here. I'm going to be all the way to the left side of the track, parallel with the track before I turn in. And again, if we draw this out, how do we know where to turn in, right? We draw it backwards like this. And we see so many people that turn in early and then end up in a position like that. So yeah, let's think about not turning in too early there, good straight up and down braking, because what that does is you can maximize more straight up and down braking, and then you'll have the bike pointed better for the exit off of 9, because there is an exit off of 9. 9's a slow corner, go slow. Pretty simple. So 9, the big thing is, again, let's make sure that we're parallel to the track at turn in, parallel to the track at turn in. Let's make sure we're not turning in too early, right? You don't want to be pointed like that. You can see how that screws that up. Instead, we want to turn in appropriately. That gives us a good trajectory into 9A. So, all right. Let's take a look at 9A. A lot of different things going on in 9A. Quite honestly, the thing that we want to look at with 9A is we do want to have a very good acceleration zone off of 9A. There's a very, very good drive that comes off here. So having the bike pointed to be in a position to drive off is super important. But we have to start thinking about 10, because 10 comes up fairly quickly. The big thing with 10 is, again, we're going to sort of draw this backwards, is we want to be driving through 10. We want to be driving through 10. So it's how we connect these 2 points that ends up being super, super important. We don't want to be down here. Let's see if I can draw this. Right, we don't want to sit here and come down here too low, and then we're just sitting here too low down there with too tight of a radius. We don't want to be jacked up all out here and then try to bring the bike back, because then we end up wasting a little bit too much space right there. So really what we're trying to do is connect these 2 dots, or connect those 2 points, and not lose out on overall speed, as well as still getting that drive. So you can kind of see how I've got that set up right there. And the idea is, let's connect those 2 points with something like that, and then you'll be able to turn in and still get your drive off of 10. We just don't want to be down into 10 too low, too early. So that ends up screwing up our drive. So think about it that way. All right. Turn 11. Oh my gosh, turn 11. There could be stories written about turn 11. So with turn 11, the big thing is the slow point's incredibly short, incredibly slow, and it's thinking about how you're going to get to it and how you want to get from it. So the slowest point of 11 is right there, right there. And the whole idea is getting to it and getting from it, and honestly respecting it. I'm gonna say this: the slower you are in 11, the better your drive is going to be. So it's better to start with going a little bit slower at the slow point and working on the drive first, because we have that big straightaway, than it is trying to rush in there with super late brakes, get super rushed, miss your apex, and then miss your drive. So let's start with the drive first. Pause. Let's start with the drive first. All right, great. As we come into 11, we accelerate out of 10. Notice that if you accelerate out of 10, where do you end up? On the edge of the track. Great. Where do you want to be set up for 11? On the edge of the track. So that works out pretty well. So as we come down into 11, this nice straight trajectory, the turn in for 11 almost feels like you're going into the pits. That's how late the turn in is. It's a lot later than you think. Yeah, if you're going to make a pass, yeah, I get it, right? You're going to come in, you're going to come down into here, get it slowed down. I understand that. But for a good lap, right, when we're looking for a good lap time, that's not what we're going to do, right? So we want to be able to stay parallel with the side of the track. Turn-in's a little bit later than you think. And then the brake release actually ends up being right smack at the slow point. It's a very quick transition between brake release and throttle, because the radius of that corner is so darn tight. So kind of a quick recap on 11. 11, the setup for 11 comes with a good exit out of 10. And let's make sure we've got really good straight up and down braking. The turn-in's later than you think. The slow point's slower than you think. And you really can think about how well you have the bike, how well you have the bike pointed. There's a really good exit reference point off of here. I know this isn't drawn all that well, just on this track map. But a good exit reference point as you come off here is where the other track comes in. There's a nice little white point right there. That always ended up being my exit apex right there is where the paint stripe is right there. Super easy to see. And if you hit that, then it made what you did here in 12 straight. So that was a great spot that I always took a look at. And the whole idea again here is you want the bike pointed so you're headed down track. Actually, you're going to end up about right there. And then you're going to be able to get the bike turned out of 12 to come down there. So that's how we take a look at that. And then again, as you come out of 11 and on the front straight, you should be thinking where your brake marker is, and you can at least use that start finish line as a guide there. So, all right. Sears Point, gosh, Sears Point, Sonoma, Infineon, all those different things. Great track, amazing track, really a rider's track. It's very intimidating track as well. But it's one that if you just have some of these highlights that we just pointed out here today, and you can have a super successful day, because these are really the things that we look at are the most important things when we go to that track. So take a look at this, write down some notes, and then I hope you get to go ride Sonoma and enjoy it, because it is absolutely iconic, epic road course that we're sort of seeing going away a little bit. So, all right, there you go.